The rain fell hard that evening, blurring the neon lights of a lonely gas station on the outskirts of Denver, Colorado. The air smelled of oil, gasoline, and the kind of cold that cut through old bones. An elderly woman named Helen clutched a thin coat around her frail body as she stepped off the bus, her shoes soaked through, her hands trembling from the chill.
She had just finished a long day sorting donated clothes at a local church, earning barely enough for a loaf of bread. In her pocket was a crumpled $10 bill, all she had left until her next pension check, still 5 days away. As Helen shuffled past the flickering light of the convenience store, she noticed movement near the gas pumps. A man in a leather jacket, bloodied and bruised, struggled to stand beside a motorcycle. The insignia on his jacket read Iron Shadows, a name that sent unease through the hearts of many in Denver. People whispered about them: bikers, outlaws, trouble. But all Helen saw in that moment was pain. His breathing was heavy, his knuckles scraped, and his eyes dazed. A few of his friends lingered nearby, their faces tough, uncertain, desperate. One of them kicked the dirt in frustration and muttered about not having money for gas or food. Helen hesitated. The world had taught her to be cautious, especially around men like that, big, leather-clad, tattooed. But her heart had never learned fear when it came to helping others. Slowly, she approached the man and placed a trembling hand on his arm. His skin was ice cold. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't ask who he was. She simply pulled out the last $10 she had, the one she'd been saving for her next meal, and pressed it into his rough palm. Then she walked inside and used it to buy bottled water, a sandwich, and some bandages. When she returned, the man, who she later learned was named Andrew, was slumped against his bike, trying to hide his pain. She knelt beside him, ignoring the stares of passers-by who couldn't understand why a woman her age would risk herself like that. She opened the bottle, helped him drink, and cleaned the blood on his cheek.
"You'll be all right,"
she whispered softly,
her voice as gentle as the rain that fell around them. "Sometimes even the strongest people need a little help."
Andrew's eyes glistened. He had been in fights before, broken bones, lost friends, but never in his life had he seen someone so fragile, yet so brave. When she finished tending to him, she smiled, wished him safety, and disappeared into the night, carrying nothing but her faith that kindness would somehow find its way back to her. That night, Helen went home hungry. Her old apartment was cold, her cupboards empty. She lit a single candle and sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. She whispered a small prayer, not for herself, but for the biker who looked so lost. It was how she had lived her whole life, giving quietly, believing deeply, and never expecting anything in return.
The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds. Helen woke up to the sound of engines rumbling in the distance.
At first, she thought it was thunder, but as the noise grew louder, she pulled aside her curtain and froze.
A long line of motorcycles, at least 50 of them, were parked outside her tiny apartment complex.
The ground shook slightly as their engines idled, and a crowd of people gathered to see what was happening.
Helen's heart pounded as she stepped outside, clutching her sweater. One of the riders, a tall man with a leather vest, approached her, holding a bouquet of daisies.
Behind him stood Andrew, now cleaned up, his bruises fading, his eyes warm with gratitude. He smiled and said softly that they had come to repay a debt that couldn't be measured in dollars.
They told her they had been on a long ride from Texas, part of a veterans charity group that had fallen on hard times.
Their gas cards had been stolen at a rest stop, and they were stranded with nothing but their bikes.
Helen's small act of compassion, her last $10, had gotten them through the night. They'd found shelter, food, and safety because of her.
The riders didn't just thank her, they transformed her life. They had spent the night calling friends, sharing her story online, and pooling their resources. That morning, they handed her an envelope containing over $20,000, money raised by bikers and strangers who had heard about the grandma who gave everything she had.
They told her it was enough to fix her roof, fill her cupboards, and ensure she'd never go hungry again.
Tears streamed down Helen's face as the leader of the group knelt beside her and said, "You gave us kindness when the world turned away. Today, the road gives it back to you." But that wasn't all. The riders also rebuilt the small community garden outside her building, a place she had once tended but abandoned when her arthritis worsened.
They brought soil, plants, flowers, and tools. Together they worked through the afternoon, laughing and sharing stories.
The sound of engines mixed with laughter became something beautiful, a symphony of hope. Children from nearby apartments joined in, helping water the flowers.
Neighbors who had barely spoken to one another in years came together, inspired by what they saw. By sunset, the once dull courtyard bloomed with color, and Helen stood at its center, her hands trembling, not from weakness, but from gratitude. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, valued, and loved. Before the bikers left, Andrew handed her a custom-made leather vest with a small patch on the back that read, "Guardian of the Road."
He told her that she was now an honorary member of their group, and that wherever they went, they'd carry her story as a reminder that even the smallest kindness can change the course of 1,000 lives.
Helen pressed the vest to her chest, overwhelmed. She didn't have words big enough to match what she felt. All she could do was whisper, "Thank you,"
as the roar of 50 motorcycles filled the evening air, fading into the horizon like a moving storm of gratitude and grace.
Helen looked around at the newly planted flowers, the envelope of money on her table, and the laughter echoing through her neighborhood.
She realized that the true miracle wasn't in what she received, but in what she had given, the spark that reignited hope in a world desperate for it. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that selfless generosity creates ripples of grace, and that even the smallest act of kindness can transform lives and ignite community, please like this video, subscribe to Third Person View, and share it with someone who needs a powerful reminder of humanity's best. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that matter, stories that light up the world.
Before we close, I want to ask you, what do you think gave Helen the courage to offer her last $10 to a stranger, defying all expectations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all.